Tastemakers was funded in part by
It all comes down to creating something unique. It's important to take pride in one's work and share expertise. Edward Jones is proud to support the craftspeople who define the maker movement.
and by Fleischmann's Yeast and A.B. Mowry.
Today, people are seeking out meat that is humanely raised, and in Texas, there is a ranch that brings you meat that is truly wild. Today on Tastemakers, I am taking you to Ingram, Texas to meet the folks behind Broken Arrow Ranch. Get ready, we're going on the hunt. I'm Kat Neville, and I've been telling the story of local food for about 20 years. In that time, I've seen the American food movement explode in tiny towns and big cities from coast to coast. In Tastemakers, I explore the maker movement and take you along for the journey to meet the makers who define the flavor of American cuisine. Hunting is an American tradition, and in a time when people are looking for humanely raised meat, wild game should be on the menu. So here in Ingram, Texas, Chris Hughes at Broken Arrow Ranch field harvests his animals and then processes them on site, sending them to chefs across the country.
Ingram is located in the heart of the Texas Hill Country. We're about 60 miles northwest of San Antonio. Out here at Broken Arrow Ranch, we have 800 acres, and it's really centered on a river that flows through the middle. And then as you get further away from the water, you get higher in elevation, you get into a little bit more of the rolling plains that are present here in the Texas Hill Country. Most of my formative years were here on the ranch. Like a lot of kids, you couldn't wait to get out of small town Texas. Went out into the world for about 10 years and gained some experience in a variety of different areas, and eventually decided that this place wasn't so bad after all, and that I really wanted an opportunity to work for myself. I wanted to be able to raise my kids in this same environment. And I love food, I love hunting, I love the outdoors, and this business matches all of those. My dad's an incredible person. He was a great role model growing up, a serial entrepreneur. He had an incredible career that helped get us out here to the Texas Hill Country in a commercial diving business, and then founded Broken Arrow Ranch, had the vision to see that business come about.
When we had purchased the ranch, I had become aware of this population of non-native species of deer and antelope. And I'd also become aware that they were becoming thought of as potential pests, overpopulating areas. And I thought, well, that's an opportunity. It was a problem, but it was an opportunity. When Chris made us aware that he would be interested in buying and taking over the wild game meat business, we were overjoyed because he's an absolute natural. And I'm sure does a much better job than I was doing.
Broken Arrow Ranch is both a place and a business. And we harvest on our property as well as other properties around the state of Texas. We're partnering with ranchers that have an overpopulation of deer and antelope. We take a shooter, a skinner, and a government meat inspector, and a mobile processing unit out to the ranch. We ride around the ranch with the rancher, selecting animals to harvest, shooting them at a distance from 50 to 200 yards away, so it's a very humane slaughter in the wild. Bring the animals back to our mobile processing unit, set up on the ranch, do the initial processing there, then bring it all back to our brick and mortar facility in Ingram, Texas, where we do the butchering, the shipping, and all the rest. I think a lot of people are really looking to connect back with nature, to get closer to their food. There's been a movement towards organic, and now it moved beyond organic to really understanding where your food came from, to actually starting to go out and source, your proteins yourself. And not everybody can do that. We're about as close as you can get to sourcing that meat yourself. We're going out, we're doing the hunting, we're doing the harvesting, and we're packaging that meat and getting it out to the restaurants and to the individuals.
I mean, you sell to chefs across the entire country.
Right, so we sell to chefs in all 50 states, Maine to Hawaii and everywhere in between. One of the advantages that we have is that it is a unique product in a couple of ways. First, it's unique in being venison and wild boar, and quail, and other game meats. So it's a meat that they don't necessarily have available to them from a more local producer. So they're seeking out this protein. The other part is just through the field harvesting that we do and our own processes differentiates us even further from the farm venison that is available out there. Finding those chefs that care about quality, care about the humane aspect of the animals, and are looking for something unique and a unique experience for their diners is really how we're able to connect with those guys.
Restaurants across the country source game from Broken Arrow Ranch, including a number of places here in Dallas. And Chef Dean Fearing, who is widely considered the father of Southwest cuisine, focuses in on a classic antelope dish. Let's go inside.
One of the wonderful things about being in this business is the great chefs that we've come to know and have become really good friends with. Dean Fearing's enthusiasm is really infectious. And he came to a number of hunts at the ranch.
Mike and I go back 35 years. Even at my first restaurant, I started buying from Mike. We did a lot of hunting down on his ranch in the early days, and he taught me about Texas wild game. I always have wild game on the menu at Fearing's. We're kind of known as a wild game restaurant.
Currently, we're using the Nilgai antelope from Broken Arrow Ranch. Over the years, we've used a lot of different game products from them. It's always neat to see what they have and to feed off what the ranchers are harvesting.
What we did today was Nilgai antelope. Nilgai antelope tastes like a great steak. There's no game flavor to it, but it's better because it's from the wild, so it's raised by forage, and it is as tender as can be. I mean, you don't even need a knife to cut it.
The antelope dish with the mesquite grill, cooking it over this wood really imparts a unique flavor as well. Serving it with grits, tangle of greens with a little bacon, the smoky chili aioli, a little pico. That's full flavor.
We harvest several species of deer. We harvest axis deer, cyca deer, fallow deer. We harvest some elk and some red deer. And we also harvest black buck antelope, Nilgai antelope, which we market as South Texas antelope. And we also do wild boar and quail from our farm.
What consumers are really gravitating toward are humanely raised and slaughtered meats. And you really can't get any more humane than letting an animal live its entire life in the wild.
Absolutely.
And harvesting the animal without rounding them up. By harvesting them in the wild, it reduces the stress on the animal, so you end up with a better quality product, but it's also just a better kill for the animal itself.
Absolutely. That's the whole reason that we're out here. The traditional model is to round up these animals and take them to a fixed, brick and mortar slaughter facility, because that's what's required. The animal has to be inspected in order for it to be sold to the public, and the inspector lives at the plant. What we've done, and that not everybody else has the opportunity to do, is instead of taking the animals to the plant, we take the plant out to the animals. we bring that mobile processing trailer out to the ranch along with the inspector. So we can come out here to the field, harvest these animals, in their native environment with no stress, and then do the initial processing and, the initial inspection here on site. And that's the reason that we do this harvest. It's not because it's easy, because there's much more efficient ways to do this process, but there's not a better, more humane way to do this process. Our field harvesting and hunting in general is a very intimate process. Unlike a factory where animals are being herded in and they're kind of panicked and they're just moving through tens, dozens, hundreds at a time, we're going out there and we're harvesting animals one by one. And as you set up, you're looking at one specific animal through your rifle scope. And a lot of times they're looking at you because they know that you're there. They're not panicked, but they're out there looking and curious. And you have to make the decision to take that animal's life. And while that process can be commonplace, certainly for somebody in my industry or somebody in a food chain process, it's not something that should be taken lightly. It's something that should be done with as much respect and as humanely as possible. The process of field harvesting involves us shooting these animals at a distance of 50 to 200 yards in the head. And while it might be a little bit graphic, it's the way that we can provide an instantaneous kill on that animal. One moment they're grazing peacefully in the field, and the next minute it's lights out and there's no stress on that animal compared to trapping and trailering and moving it through some kind of chute system and having a really, really, really bad day. A lot of these processes that raise animals humanely, we say they have one bad day. I would argue that our animal really doesn't even have a bad day. They don't even know that it happened.
So once the animal's down, you have to bleed the animal, but then you electrostimulate it. Why do you do that?
It's actually a device that my brother-in-law makes called a tinderbuck. And what it does is it runs an electric current through the animals and it causes the muscles to contract. And as they contract, it squeezes the blood out of the muscles and it improves the flavor of the meat. You think about a gamey flavor that you might find in venison, a lot of that is that kind of irony blood taste. And so this makes sure that you get a very thorough bleed and a much cleaner tasting meat. It also helps to tenderize the meat through that process, and it also helps improve the shelf life of the product as well.
The rules are pretty complicated, so I won't go into all the details, but suffice it to say that all meat has to be inspected before it's commercially available. So a state licensed inspector goes on every single Broken Arrow Ranch harvest.
One of the things about our operation is that we're taking a government meat inspector out into the field with us. When the meat inspector is out there with us, they'll ride around on the harvest, they'll inspect the animals, the herd in general when they're alive, looking for just overall health of the animals. That's part of the requirement. And then after the animal's been harvested, they're inspecting the meat carcass, looking for good muscle structure and good overall health of the animal. So this is not one of our employees. We are not paying this inspector. They are paid for with tax dollars. It's a third-party certification, it's a representative of the people. So this is the same process that takes place in a brick and mortar facility. We're just happening to do it out with our mobile facility in the field. The mobile processing unit was a really innovative concept. Before, the animals would have to be rounded up and taken to a fixed slaughter facility. And when Dad started harvesting wild game, he knew that the stress of trying to round up wild animals was going to ruin the quality of the meat. So he wanted to figure out a way, instead of taking the animals to the plant, take the plant out to the animals. And there was a lot of regulations about what you needed on a processing unit in general. He followed all those regulations, put it on a trailer, and the government said, we've got to approve this.
The design requirements that we had to meet were you need to have 180-degree hot water. You had to have a sanitary environment, which means washable, non-absorbent wall materials, floor materials, ceiling materials. We had to have chilled storage in order to transport the carcasses back. And there had to be an inspection station for the meat inspector and so forth. So I designed all those into the trailers, and they didn't have any reason not to approve it. It actually used a lot of my background as a deep-sea diving equipment designer. So it was an easy thing to do relative to designing a complex piece of diving gear.
The mobile unit is kind of a multi-room process in that you've got a processing floor where the skinning takes place, and you've got a refrigerated cooler section for transporting the animal back to our fixed plant, and then kind of a life support system up front with a water heater, generator, water tanks, and everything else to help keep the operation moving. Another part of our business, it's actually separate from Broken Arrow Ranch, is our quail farm in Bandera called Diamond H Ranch. And this is something that we started in 2010. And it's a kind of an add-on endeavor for us. We found that a lot of our restaurant customers were using the wild game meats and the venison and the wild boar, and on the mixed grill there would always be a quail on there as well. So we had the opportunity to acquire this quail farm in Bandera, and we've got it up and running, and it's been a great adventure ever since.
Do you get the same kind of satisfaction out of raising these animals as you do working with the wild animals?
Oh, absolutely. You know, anytime you can raise an animal humanely and then harvest that animal and utilize that animal, for its intended purpose for food, that's a very satisfying thing. Our hatchery is
right there.
Right there, 100 feet that way. And they're all processed on site. It's a single site operation where everything happens here. We can watch over the entire operation, control the quality the whole way through. So these ladies are making quail poppers. So those are quail breast, jalapeno, wrapped in bacon.
That's fantastic.
And then these ladies are doing our semi-boneless birds. Very good people, very, very hard workers, and do a great job. Our model I like to describe as a win-win-win situation. The animals get to live a wild, natural life out in nature as intended. The harvest that we do reduces that population down to a naturally sustainable level. That's one of the main things that we do, is if there's an overpopulation, disease and starvation can occur. And so that's why a rancher would really want us coming out to their properties as part of their land management program. And then we pay the rancher for the animals that we harvest because the animals have value. So they're getting residual income as well as keeping their land and their populations properly managed. One of our great ranch partners in South Texas, where we harvest the nilgai antelope, the South Texas antelope, is the East Wildlife Foundation. And they have us come out there to help keep that nilgai population under control, because otherwise it would start to upset the ecosystem.
East Foundation's a nonprofit. We're a large landowning nonprofit. We have a little over 200,000 acres of South Texas ranch land that we manage as a laboratory for research, education, and outreach, all in support of wildlife conservation. The value behind keeping rural land as rural land overall is pretty important. If you look at a state like Texas, where we have 172 million acres total across the state, 142 million acres of that is private farms, ranches, or forest lands. So all of our water, all of our wildlife, all of our fiber, all of our food comes from that 142 million acres. How we manage that and how we conserve that, our future depends on it. So that's kind of important. Broken Arrow Ranch is our partner in harvesting nilgai antelope off of 2 of our properties. We really don't have native predators for nilgai. So in order for us to control that population, we have to have people that know how to do it humanely, efficiently, and effectively, and then most importantly, put that meat to use. And so we partner with Broken Arrow Ranch.
Broken Arrow Ranch partners with a number of ranches across the state of Texas within a 300-mile radius of Ingram. So today we are at White Cross Ranch to meet up with Bruce. Who's the foreman, just took us around this amazing 3,000-acre property, and now I'm standing here with Bruce. And Bruce, how many animals do you have here on the ranch?
Well, it's hard to get an exact number because they don't stand around and you can't count them, but
they definitely don't stand around.
We have upwards of 1,000 animals on the ranch.
So, explain to me the relationship that you have with Broken Arrow Ranch and the services, essentially, that they provide.
Part of owning a ranch like this is to manage the game on it, because if there's too many animals, then there's not enough food, and so the numbers get pretty big pretty quick. So as part of a game management, Broken Arrow provides a service to help us do that, and we get paid for it. So it's a win-win deal. We control our population that way, and he does a great job and then takes it as a great food source all around the country.
So you grew up doing this with your dad.
Yes, ma'am.
And, I mean, what made you fall in love with this, besides how gorgeous it is?
Sure. You know, part of it was, a desire to work for myself. Part of it was just this activity, this lifestyle. I love outdoors, I love hunting, I love food, I love cooking, and this is a perfect business that blends both of those activities. On the one side, your job is to go out and go hunting. Mm-hmm. On the other side, you're getting to interact with chefs and work with chefs and learn a lot from them, and that side of it's fun as well. So just being able to blend those 2 passions is perfect.
To wrap up this episode, we are going to head over to the spring-fed swimming hole that's on the other side of the Broken Arrow Ranch property. Come with me, and we're going to cook up a mixed grill.
Tonight, we have a feast in store. We're gonna cook a little wild boar smoked sausage, some quail marinated in a garam masala sauce. We are going to cook some antelope and some axes. We're gonna do some zucchini from our garden, as well as kind of a tomato salad and herbs that are also from our garden here on the ranch.
Thank you for joining me in Texas, and I will see you next time.
And thank you for hosting us.
Well, you're more than welcome.
Oh,
Enjoy.
I can't wait to dig in.
There's more information on the makers featured in this series, along with recipes and extra videos at wearetastemakers.com.
Tastemakers was funded in part by
It all comes down to creating something unique. It's important to take pride in one's work and share expertise. Edward Jones is proud to support the craftspeople who define the maker movement.
and by Fleischmann's Yeast and A.B. Mowry.